one of the top of the list for us. You look at Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. These are brands that are known everywhere in the world. And the ability to drive those all over the world with great story is a big opportunity for us. We have done a reset. We've restructured the business where we're going to focus, where there will be a team with a 10-year plan focusing just on DC. It's very similar to the structure that Alan Horn and Bob Iger put together very effectively with Kevin Feige at Disney.
What the hell is that?
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to TWIG Sunday Funnies. That's right, we're back in reprints, though this is a new edition of the rebooted version of the show, which, well, it'll come out whenever it comes out. I'm your host, one of the hosts, actually, though not the main one. I'm Mike the Birdman. I'm joined by the comic connoisseur himself,
JT from Saskatoon, and no, I'm not dead.
Yes, so this show, it kind of got buried under the year of 2022. Life got in the way. That's just kind of how it is. But
yeah,
me and JT were having a conversation during last week's Twig when he was filling in about kind of what we'd like to see with the DCEU. And the story has broken in the last, as of this recording, we're recording this on Saturday, August 13th. News is broken that DC is considering the nuclear option when it comes to the Flashpoint movie, which is supposed to come out in June of next year, because its star Ezra Miller was showing up for reshoots between arrests.
Yeah, so let's run down the laundry list of felonies he's committed. He's accused of grooming, accused of sheltering a mother and her 3 kids from Child Protective Services, while loose weapons and even looser ammunition lay around this farmhouse they were shacked up in. He's got a restraining order. He had a restraining order to be served against him by these 2 Native American parents who were trying to get their daughter away from him. And, when he was in Iceland filming The Stand, he may or may not have started a cult.
Yeah, so let's just say putting this guy as the poster person for your movie, probably not the brightest idea that David Zaslav has from Warner Brothers, DC, Discovery, whatever they want to call themselves. So me and JT kind of started a brief conversation on last week's Twig show, thinking DC has been trying to catch up to Marvel since the Nolan trilogy ended. And they had a pretty good start with 2013's Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, and then that quickly went off the rails. However, there have been some successes like the original Wonder Woman, Shazam, Aquaman, The Suicide Squad, and everything else has been sort of in the middle there to that's okay, to that's passable, that plane sucks, to, oh God, what are we going to do now? And now with stuff getting canceled left and right, we don't know what's going to look like the DC extended universe is going to look like. So I proposed the idea to JT. Well, let's say we have the gift of clairvoyance, the gift of foresight to plan this thing out. Let's say we are our very own Kevin Feige like figure. We are our own Jon Favreau's of the DC thing. And I'm coming at this as someone, I like DC comics, but I don't have a lot of experience reading them. I know what I've seen from the DC animated stuff. I've read some stuff, and I know of the characters from pop culture. So I'm coming at this from a very everyman's point of view here, but JT obviously is the virtual Riddler when it comes to knowing everything about this sort of stuff.
What? I have no life and I read a lot. Wait, I wasn't supposed to say that out loud.
So yeah, it's been one of those things I got to thinking, so you want to build up a Marvel-like structure. And obviously, when things started out with the first Iron Man, they threw in the Nick Fury scene about the Avengers Initiative as just kind of a gag. They didn't know whether it was going to go anywhere. But once they realized people wanted that, conversations started happening. So we know if we're going to construct the DCEU rebooted, basically from Earth 2 or whatever, we got to have a plan. And that plan involves who do you bring out? Because when Marvel did it, you wouldn't think of Iron Man as one of the first people you would bring out as your everyday starter hero, because when I knew about Iron Man back in 2007, 2008, he was an Avenger. Sure, he was smart, but he was just kind of there. He's a guy in a suit of armor. He wasn't Wolverine, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to do this, what story do you start the DCEU with? And I think it comes down to the big three. It comes down to Batman, Superman, and I think you could make a pretty convincing argument for Wonder Woman now. So, where do you begin the story of the DCEU? Do you start it super powered with like Superman? Do you start at ground level with Batman and introducing the larger universe? Or do you take it more mystical and fantastical with Wonder Woman?
Well, and yes, I know way more about comics than any man rightly should. And some days I almost feel bad about that. But as with anything, I think you, like you said, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Definitely in the beginning of this 10-year plan, we are Kevin Feige. I think we need to start with the Trinity. So we do a Superman, a Batman, and a Wonder Woman to start. Now, I don't know how much thought you put into your structure, Mike, but I'm unabashedly ripping off the MCU playbook in terms of phases and end credit scenes and nods and all that.
I have
Although,
ideas on what I
yeah,
want to accomplish.
yeah. Although I'm not going to do what they did in just a very nitpicky thing. I love a lot of the Marvel costumes. Like, and some of them are incredibly accurate to the comics. I mean, dear God, the pants stay on the Hulk for no other reason than the rule of cool. Or, Iron Man's armor, it's Iron Man's fucking armor. Black Widow, a lot of what we've seen. But I would make an effort to make the costumes look more modern, but kind of retain that spandex kind of look. Because like I said, even with the Arrowverse shows, the Berlanti-verse shows, Arrow and Flash and all that, it just looks too much like like motorcycle leathers, So I want to have that, make it real, make it not mature but
Stylish.
stylish, make it serious but not camp, not just a little dash of camp.
I would maybe adapt some stuff from, because I've been playing the Batman Arkham games recently.
Mhm.
Maybe you could steal some stuff from there.
Yeah. And I'm telling you right now, and I don't care what the higher ups at the studio say, Superman's going to have his underwear on the outside.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean,
I'm
if it looks cool.
Yeah. Now, like I said, Superman. Now, what I went with Superman is, it's a lot of these heroes. They're not, except for a couple of characters. Uh, Most of the heroes are going to start fully formed in the world, have been operating for a minimum of 3 to 5 years. To the point that Superman is well established for my first film, Superman, he's well established. He's, the Man of Steel, the Metropolis Marvel, the Big Blue Boy Scout, and his best friend is Lex fucking Luthor. So,
Okay.
and it's these, and it's not an ass pull, but the villain of the first movie, and yeah, I think the opening credits, it's like a kind of a montage of events. Like you see him as like Superman defeated Chemo, who's this giant walking toxic chemical spill in a suit. Like, oh, like, I think, have you ever watched Batman Brave and the Bold?
I haven't seen a lot of it, but I have
Oh,
seen it.
okay, imagine a creature the size of Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, it's a walking, like, arms and legs and a head, and it's this barely sentient mass of toxic chemicals. read the wiki later, you'll love it.
All
So
right.
you have stuff like that of him saving the space shuttle champion or whatever, like where we meet Hank Henshaw in the classic DC comics, who eventually becomes Cyborg Superman. Just stuff like that. What we think is the main villain is Metallo, the
Okay.
man with the kryptonite heart. Borrowing a little more from the 90s era Metallo, where he wasn't just the Terminator, he was the Terminator Plus, where he looks like the skeletal robot man with a kryptonite heart, but he can absorb technology into him and grow larger and more powerful. And by the end of it, the third act twist is Lex Luthor is behind it all. Duh, because it's Lex fucking Luthor. And this it kind of shatters Superman Clark, that he wonders, like, has he wasted his time? Is he really a superhero after all this? And he has like the Phil Coulson. I'm not going to make Jimmy Olsen, but kind of a Phil Coulson-esque character in Jimmy Olsen. He gives Superman that, like, you're Superman, you've saved the day, that's what you do. Who cares about Lex Luthor? The guy's a dick anyhow. And you know
Sorry,
he
that's just high sugar. Sorry.
yeah, no. So that's what I would do with my Superman movie. And my first end credit scene. And I'm gonna let you know now, when we do Wonder Woman, I'm bringing Gal Gadot in.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Straight up. As much as I love Aquaman, I haven't cast a lot of these characters. There's certain actors. As much as I love Aquabro or Lord and King Jason Momoa, he's my Lobo. In fact,
Okay.
the end
Fair
the
enough.
end credit scene is Lobo being hired by, I don't know, Kanjar Rowe or one of the classic space bad guys. Like, I want you to bring me the Kryptonian. And you don't even see him until like the last few seconds, but you see the chain and hook that Lobo has in the comics go flying through the air and smash the screen with a shot of Superman on it, and he just walks into the light puffing on a cigar and fragger. And
I like it.
yeah. So I know, how would you do a Superman movie?
I would obviously not have Lex Luthor as the big bad in that movie because that's been done to death. I like the idea of using Metallo or one of his lesser known villains, maybe Mongol. But I like the idea of having him established. Basically, you've established that he's been around for a while. There are super villains. Maybe he hasn't faced a world threat yet. He's faced street level to mid level guys.
Yeah.
So maybe someone like Mongol is his first intergalactic person because he's like, I thought I was one of the few aliens out here. Nobody's come to Earth looking for trouble yet.
Yeah.
And then maybe for the post credit stinger, I would have a Green Lantern show up, maybe only off screen. You hear the voice, you see the green glow, you hear Nathan Fillion's voice. He introduces himself as the protector of 2814 and says, "You know, you're not the only one out here looking after this big blue marble." And you start to lay the seeds for either Apocalypse or War World, and you start to get the feeling that maybe there's more out there, but you get the idea that there is a cosmic side to it. So this way, when you want to bring back the Green Lanterns, you've already established them, and that's something you could do maybe in a TV show. If we're going to steal from the Marvel playbook, maybe we can start that sooner as opposed to waiting till much later down the line with some of the Disney Plus shows
Yeah.
like WandaVision, etc. If
Yeah.
I for my next movie, I would do a Batman, and we're not doing Joker. Joker exists. Joker is in Arkham Asylum already.
Yeah.
Again, you can show how the Joker messed up his life in like an opening montage. Maybe that's the first villain that he captures. And I would adapt one of the big storylines, maybe Long Halloween, try and get something weird in there. I want something more detective like, something more in line with the Batman, where I want him more of the thinking man's fighter. I don't want him to be this larger than life Batman and Robin type character, but I want him to have established people working with him. I want to have Robin, which I guess at this point would be Tim Drake. I guess I would have Nightwing in there, but I don't want to overload it. So I would establish a lot of Batman's kind of rogue kind of gallery in there, let that storyline kind of play out. You could even throw in a few Easter eggs to the Suicide Squad or something in there. You could even put Amanda Waller in there as like a name on a computer screen or something, like, hey, what's this Task Force X thing? And then Batman's like, I don't know, but I'm going to find out, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that sets up Batman, that sets up Gotham. We have Metropolis established, and maybe for the post-credits stinger of that, Batman goes to the Bat computer, sees the aftermath of your movie, where he's like, LexCorp has been indicted on federal charges, blah, blah, blah. Superman responsible. My God, that is annoying. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would do it, because this way now you've got them two established. They're they're both on the right side of things,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not antagonistic, which is, I think, a big problem when the DCEU tried to do Batman v Superman. There was no reason for them to be against each other that close to all these movies coming out.
Oh yeah, and I mean, just speak BVS very very quickly. It shows how desperate Warner Brothers and DC was to be making the Marvel bank, because they were trying to reverse Avengers, the Justice League, into existence. And we've talked about those movies before. We don't need to dwell on that. It shows the desperation early on, and it took them like another 6 years before they got the proverbial shite together. I've also read rumors recently that Zaslav is rumored to be talking to Greg Berlanti, who's been like the a little bit of a Feige-esque character with the Arrowverse shows. Because those, I mean, say what you will about the quality of the shows, but the storytelling and the interconnectivity is, it's pretty top notch. So I agree with you. If we do a Batman, hold off on Joker. It's like when I talk with, we've talked many times on the Comic Connoisseurs podcast with Ben and Red. Like Ben, and I love this idea of his minimum. If we were to reboot DC, like Crisis, it, we're starting from scratch again. Out of the New 52, the Joker is off the table for a minimum a year to 2 years.
Yep,
Because
fair
it's
enough.
just too big. So I would do something along the lines of, I really would love to see a Riddler.
Yeah.
Not as much as I love the Jim Carrey. I want more of a Frank Gorshin-esque Riddler. This guy who is, sure, he's got the psychological compulsion to leave clues about what he's going to do next, but it's riddles head inside Russian nesting dolls mixed in a Enigma code breaking machine. Like, it's just layers on layers on layers. So I would love it to be Riddler, where he's, by the end of it, you find clues throughout. I would love to have the script written so that as you pay attention watching the movie, you can put the clues together yourself. Like, kind of little touch of meta interactivity. I think that might be overly ambitious, but I definitely love to use the Riddler. I would do Batman of, he's almost rooted mafia-esque crime out of Gotham, but now he's left this literal power vacuum. This is where the freaks start coming in. Your Penguins, your Clayfaces, your Solomon Grundys, who's, I would love to do kind of how they did Solomon Grundy in Arkham City, where, he's going through this old warehouse and there's this ancient like 1800s poster of, is he alive or dead? With like the top half of the poster ripped off so you don't see his face or something like that. And if I were to do my end credit scene, this isn't setting up anything for the next movie. This is just a wink and a nod to Batman history. It would be kid going through a toy store and you see what looks like a plush Batman sitting on there on a shelf. and the store closes and locks, and then it blinks its eyes and it rises up and flits away, and it's goddamn Batmite. And we are getting
That'd be funny.
Paul Pee Wee Herman Rubens to come back and voice him, because he voiced him on Batman Brave and the Bold, and it is absolutely perfect. And,
All right.
and maybe it'll come back later. Now, if we move on from Batman to Wonder Woman, there are so many different origins for Wonder Woman. I think we need to figure out first. There's the classic origin where Queen Hippolyta, makes a baby out of clay on the beach and prays to the Olympian gods, and boom, lightning hits it, and out of the baked clay is this baby. And then there's the New 52-esque origin that we kind of saw in the Wonder Woman movie, where she's the daughter of Zeus and therefore a demigod in her own right. And in the comics, like in the pre-52 continuity, she became the goddess of truth for a while. And I don't know if she's still the god of war in the current thing, because there was this whole thing where she killed Ares and she was now the god of war. So I don't know if that still is holding sway. But which origin would you want to go the classic, or would you do the my father is Zeus?
I would do my father is Zeus. And I'm trying to figure, because now we're introducing the mystical stuff of the DCEU. So who do you cast as your villain for this? Because I think Cheetah is not something you want to do. It's a little too bland, I think. And as Wonder Woman 1984 showed, it was lame.
I still say we should have had a werewolf-esque transformation sequence for Kristen Wiig, because I'm sorry, it's just her talking to Max Lord after she gets all glam punked up, and then all of a sudden she's a furry.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Yeah. I think Cheetah would work as a villain. I don't want to have her like being tossed
a supporting villain, maybe.
Nah, I want, because the character of Cheetah is this Barbara Minerva is this paleontologist, archaeologist specializing in Greek and Roman myths, such, I would build up to her becoming Cheetah, and her story of how she is screwed, like there, and as many origins there are for Wonder Woman, there are for the Cheetah. I would save her for second or third movie. I would want to almost do, if we do Son of My Father is Zeus, why not have her fight her brother Ares? Because
I think that's good.
Because the way I would do Wonder Woman is kind of the way they introduced her after Crisis on Infinite Earths. Is the first time she's in man's world. She lands in Boston for the longest time. She makes friends with this archaeologist and her young daughter, who, oh my god, the Greek gods are real. And one of her first very big villains that she fought in that run was Ares. So I would kind of mix a little bit of that. Possibly have a scene before she leaves Themyscira or Paradise Island. I kind of always like that name in the Golden Age comics too, and Silver Age. Have a scene where Artemis, who's the redheaded Amazon who took over as Wonder Woman in the 90s, where Hippolyta thought Diana was going to die in this battle, so she conceived this convoluted way of removing the Wonder Woman title from her daughter to save her. I would do that, and because we're getting into the mystical, and I do have an idea, probably halfway to our
Avengers team up.
The Justice League movie, and that's Zatanna. Because
good.
Because we're dipping our toes into the mystical. See, again, because like I said, we're flat out ripping off the Marvel formula. I'm not even going to try and apologize for that, because it works, and you steal what works. What I would do is Thor or Wonder Woman is our Thor.
Yeah.
So we're entering into the world of the mystical, of the cosmic, but with Zatanna, this is our, not for lack of a better term, this is our Ghost Ray. This is like we are diving head first into the mystical of Marvel, of the DC universe. if you don't know the origin in the comics, folks, her dad was John Zatara or Zachary Zatara? No, what did they call him in Young Justice? Is it Giovanni?
Beats the shit out of me.
Yeah. No, it's Giovanni Zatara. He has legitimate mystic powers. His wife, who is Zatanna's mother, was part of the Homo Magi, or these people are just naturally mystically gifted. And, Zatanna's a mix of both. And her and her dad cast spells by speaking stuff backwards. So I would have her dealing with this problem. Like, there's any number of mystics in the DC universe. She gets a call or a message from her ex, John Constantine, or Tyne, as I've learned watching The Sandman. It's supposed to be pronounced Constantine. That says the Demons 3 are about to awaken. The Demons 3 are this long, like, not ancient part, but they're this integral part of kind of the mysticism of like Silver Age into the 80s of DC Comics, where there's 3 demons. They're gonna tear the world in a half for their lord and master Neron, and Zatanna has to travel to different mystical places like Nanda Parbat and other concepts in DC to gather things, to try gather the bell, the jar, and the wheel, which are these mystic relics in DC Comics. And, she's got to prevent these from being used to release the demons. And then you find out that see, that's where I got stuck, creatively speaking. I don't know how it ended, but it's basically she's got to stop this magical apocalypse.
Okay.
And that's about where I would go as Zatanna.
Okay.
I will say, in terms of casting, if she is up for it and she still looks fine, is the actress Serinda Swan, who played Zatanna in Smallville. And this woman, she's got the figure for it. She looks great in fishnets, and I would totally give her the top hat and tuxedo costume that she has in the comics.
Would you use that as her primary thing during the film, or would that be your couple last few minutes?
That is her, because she's also a professional, like
A stage.
A stage magician, like Copperfield and Siegfried and Roy. So she does wear that on stage, and as she's going through this search, obviously it's not going to make sense for her to be trotting around the world in just this suit and fishnets and high heels. But part of the idea I had with the in the third act climax during the final battle is the big bad, whoever I end up coming that to be, starts talking shit about her and her father's profession and how they're, debasing themselves by pretending to do magic, for these foolish mortals. And you see that look in her eyes, like, oh, it's on. And she, says, outfit appear backwards. And she puts that on. And she's like, what in the hell is this? And she just looks at him. It's showtime. And then, they get to throwing magic at each other back and forth.
All right. So I've got an idea to follow this, and this will start establishing probably one of our last members before we lead up to our Justice League movie. We probably got 2 or 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say The Flash, and this will be one of our first origin stories, but it's going to take a twist. I want Taika Waititi to direct it. It's going to be The Flash. And it's going to be how he got his powers and his first battles in Central City against Captain Cold and Heatwave. So he's got 2 guys to go up against, and how he starts to figure himself out, figuring out the Speed Force, and just kind of learning what it means to be a hero. He would be the hero that kids would sort of latch onto as, oh, he's young and he's just kind of figuring himself out, sort of thing. And then the other heroes are like, so I hear you. And the post-credit scene for that movie, Superman shows up at one of the Flash's I guess he gets like a key to the city or something.
Yeah.
And it's a very Ghostbusters like ending. And Superman flies down from the sky and Barry's all like, "Oh my God, you're Superman! That's so cool." He's like, "Yeah, I get that a lot." And he puts his hand on Barry's shoulder. He goes, "So, you want to find out who's faster?" And then the post credit scene, the credits are them racing throughout the world, and then the post credit scene, literally the last thing has just going
At the end of the
flew by.
credits.
Yeah, Barry takes one step faster than Superman and goes, "Man, I was holding back just a touch. I thought you were quicker." And then it cuts to black.
Okay, so I love that. I would add, I don't think it's overcrowding the villain card to have a third rogue, because the rogues are, you want to have the classics. And so I'm down with Captain Cold and Heatwave. I want Captain Boomerang, and I'm bringing Jai Courtney back because
Yes.
my boy need more respect than being killed in the first 10 minutes, Mr. Gunn. I'm sorry, that's literally the only thing that pissed me off about the
Same here.
suicides.
I
You know,
wanted him to live.
yeah. I would cast Dylan O'Brien from, he was Styles in MTV's Teen Wolf. He was the lead of the Maze Runner series, American Assassin. A lot of fan casting for Nightwing, but I like his energy and his comedic timing. And I think it would be great as, I'm assuming we're going to go with Barry.
Yep.
And I don't know for end credit scene if we're going to build, building towards Justice League, obviously, but I would have the mid credit scene, like you said, Superman comes down. He's like, "You want to race?" And it goes to black, and you hear like double sonic booms. Like it goes to black for like a second with nothing on screen, double sonic booms, and then we go to credits. Like
Yeah.
you don't see the race. That honestly, Superman would give Flash a run for his money, especially since it's more or less Silver Agey kind of Flash. Like we don't know the Speed Force, time travel, all that. At best, his coolest trick is vibrating through a wall.
Yeah.
So,
So we're establishing him as something that will be important later. Maybe if you want to hide a couple of Easter eggs in there, maybe you could hide Reverse Flash in there somewhere. You could start to hint at Final Crisis, but
I'd say
don't make Crisis. Yeah, like don't make it obvious. Make it subtle. Make it something that people really got to be looking for.
Yeah, and yeah, I like that. Now, if we go from the Flash forward, and this is a character that, or actually, sorry, we have our first. I think this would be a good point in the building towards things because there's so much cool stuff in DC. This is where we have our first, divergence point. Not necessarily breaking the story, but it's that slight step to the side that we got with the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here, I have two teams that I want to put in the timeline somewhere. And the first one I want to do is the Challengers of the Unknown. Are you familiar with this concept at all?
I've heard it, but I don't know exactly what
Okay.
it is.
So the Challengers of the Unknown is this 4-man team of I'm just looking for, there's Ace Morgan, Professor Haley, Rocky Davis, and Red Ryan. Ace is like former aviator, test pilot. Professor Haley is this like expert level scientist and spelunker scuba diver. Rocky Davis is like a decathlete, like world champion boxer, all around badass. And Red Ryan's this daredevil explorer of the unknown. And in the comics, they're all on this flight. It's kind of like what's it, like the day the music died,
Mm-hmm.
like where they're on this plane. It's struck by lightning that crashes. Everyone else dies. In some stories, it's just them on the plane. Other plane, there's other people there. But basically, they survive a crash, and their watches all. I'm gonna have this thing. Their watches stop at the same time in the crash, and now they're all living on borrowed time, and decide to make that everything, like make that worth everything, because you never know what tomorrow brings. And they become this very it's created by Jack Kirby before Fantastic Four. So it's this very Fantastic Four-esque where they're just ordinary guys using their wit and skills to go out and solve weird mysteries. And one of their main villains is this guy called Multi-Man, who I forget what his origin is exactly, but every time this guy dies, he comes back with a new superpower. So I would think, like, whatever we give his name, like Martin Mulligan, or sorry, Martin MacGuffin. And Martin MacGuffin is an archaeologist. He finds this idol or some sort of ancient cosmic relic. And when he activates it, there's this flash of green and yellow light energy. And he wakes up. Now, the view in the comics is he's got this slightly bulbous head with Spock ears. And that's just as a result of the transformation. So I'd like to keep that if we can. Maybe make a slightly bulbous head, the Spock ears, but it's more of a slow progression of a disease. Like the more he dies, the more he starts looking like this weird creature. And by the end of it, they have defeated him, and Prof is somehow able to translate some of the ancient hieroglyphs on this device, and he's only able to translate 2 words: fourth world. That's right. The Challengers of the Unknown are going to introduce the concept of Jack Kirby's new gods, because that device that Martin Mulligan took or futzed with was a mother box.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the next people I want to introduce before we build the Justice League, we have to have Cyborg. And I think
I had him on my list too. Yeah.
And I'm debating, do I want to give Cyborg a really expensive 6-episode miniseries with an appropriate budget? I want this character to really breathe and really develop. Or do I want to give him a good a good mid-budget movie? Because I think people know the character of Cyborg, but I don't know whether they really put him in the same kind of conversation as the holy kind of trinity, right?
Yeah.
So I want the character to breathe. I want to be respectful, and I want to add more people of color and add more diversity, because right now we're pretty much Wonder Bread. What can we do with Cyborg? Now we know he's got ties to apocalyptic technology.
That's the
What
new
do we do?
52 origin, yeah, because
Yeah.
he was caught in the event horizon of a boom tube as it was opening up. And if you ever watched the Justice League War original movie that basically started the DC animated movie universe, the only movie where Alan Tudyk voiced Superman, I really wish he would have come back. But we got Jerry O'Connell, like My Secret Identity, to voice Superman. That was awesome. I don't know, because we got the mother box here. I would definitely have his cybernetics, like whatever the accident we come up with that necessitates his dad, Dr. Silas Stone, throwing him into this blender of weird technologies. I would keep that where his dad works at Star Labs. He's the head of Star Labs in Metropolis. Victor's injured in this horrible accident, and he's about to lose him, and he's like, fucking, he goes into the red room where they got all this classified and potentially lethal technology, and he starts using it to rebuild Victor's body and use promethium, which in the DC universe is the equivalent of adamantium in terms of it's this metal that only exists there, and it can do so many cool things. I think I'm down with you if we did like a 5 or 6 episode, like on, let's call it DC Maximum Plus or streaming service. I definitely think if we could do that and then bring him into the movies. And that's the other thing that bugs me about all the Marvel shows until it was the Disney Plus series. Like there was that division between the Netflix shows and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that always bothered me. I definitely, any streaming shows we do, they are in canon with our rebooted universe. And build up Cyborg. I would even, bringing it back to Challengers, like in the, have Professor Haley be a contemporary of Silas and have him show up, not become a Nick Fury, but maybe have the Challengers become recurring thread through the next few movies before Justice League. like, spoiler alert, Justice League, I don't want Darkseid or the Fourth World to be the Justice League. We'll figure that out. This is
I've
like,
got an idea, and I think you'll like it.
yeah. If this was me, I would save the Darkseid and Apocalypse in the Fourth World. That's our end game.
That's our Thanos.
Yeah, that's the end of Phase 3, something like that. But going on from Cyborg, there is one character that I love in comics more than anything. I want Hawkman to be in Justice League. Now, those that don't know the character of Hawkman, there's any number of origins. There's the Golden Age version, where, you know, archaeologist Carter Hall finds this knife made out of nth metal, and he has this weird dream, and he realizes he's the reincarnation of this Egyptian prince, and, you know, go on like that. I would use the Silver Age Carter Hall, who is Katar Hall from the planet Thanagar. He's chasing this shape-shifting villain from his home planet, and him and his partner, eventual lover, and then wife, Shayera Thal, they track him to Earth, they crash land, and it's kind of a fish out of water action comedy kind of thing, where see them like trying to find this guy on Earth, but you think about human society and how people change their looks like constantly every day, and to some degree, and have them, you know, this fish out of water, them trying to fit in, but by virtue of the Absorbicon, which is this artifact in DC Comics, folks, that lets you absorb information in seconds. So, and this is the excuse they used in the Silver Age to have Carter and Shayera Hall become the curators of the Midway City Museum of Natural History, because they've literally absorbed the entirety of human knowledge because they're aliens and they can do that. And this allows them to basically fake being well-read and educated archaeologists.
I like that.
And Hawkman, when you think of, yes, it's this guy. He's got this hawk-headed helmet. Look up Michael Shanks as Hawkman in the Smallville Justice Society crossover movie that they did. It's, you know, that's what the helmet looks like. He has the bandolier strap, but I'd give him something of like a combat wife beater or something. He's not going to be naked underneath the straps. And, you know, big hawk wings, actual feathery looking wings. I love Aldous Hodge as an actor, but I saw that design for Hawkman and Black Adam, and I was like, ooh, that's shiny. Like, I was distracted by how shiny it was. I want real wings, and if I want one scene where he defeats the shape-shifting villain as he's threatening his wife, and you hear this, like, a war cry, like some savage beast, as Hawkman comes streaking out of the sky like a hawk diving on a bunnet, and he's got his trademark mace. Hawkman is nothing without his mace, and you just see him bury it in the body of the shape-shifting villain. He's not dead, and this isn't the end of the movie. It's just he finally, you know, the whole. And I would also have this back and forth of him and Shayera, you know, will they, won't they? You know, have a little fighty like that, and yeah, just have this scene where he just, fuck you do not touch my woman, kind of. And it's not to make Shayera, she's like more like the Hawk Girl from the Justice League cartoon. Like, she
can carry her own.
She takes about a tenth of the shit that Carter takes. She's more combative. She's more in your face. She's not a He-Man or a She-Man woman man-hater. It's just, you do not fuck with this woman. And I would love to have Hawkman in my Justice League, because it's motherfucking Hawkman.
All right, so here is how I get to our first Justice League movie. So we call it Justice League. So the movie opens, and it's Lex Luthor in Stryker's Island or something, and he's sitting there in his cell. His assistant comes up. I can't remember her name, Mercy or something.
Mercy Graves.
Mercy Graves comes up, and she delivers him a package. And the security guards goes, "Oh, what's that?" She's like, "Oh, it's just a nice rock that I found." And you think, "Oh, it's going to be kryptonite. That's how he's going to get out of jail." No, it's a seashell. And he grins and looks at her and goes, the king has accepted your proposal. And somehow, some way, Lex Luthor has manipulated Aquaman into going to war with the surface world. He's got him convinced that the surface world has been attacking Atlantis. No, it's been LexCorp operatives. He's been using Black Manta or somebody else to distract basically Atlantis into going to war with the surface. And everybody on the surface is like, well, where the hell are these attacks coming from? And everybody that we've assembled so far, like you've got your Flash, you got Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, they're all like, well, how the hell do I know? And then you get this huge attack of like creatures coming out of the water, and they're like, we seek to speak with the surface dwellers who dare attack our kingdom. And they're all like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, you pretend to lie to me? Face the wrath of Atlantis. Huge fight. Basically, it kind of ends like how the Avengers realize, hey, maybe we should work together rather than against each other. And then they realize Lex has been pulling the strings this whole time. The big fight in this movie is Lex Luthor gets his big fuck off armor set. He teams up with Black Manta and they start wrecking Metropolis. And then the movie just keeps getting more and more intense. Eventually, they take down Luthor and Manta. But one of the last shots of the movie is Luthor gets in a really good shot at Superman. And I'm talking almost kills him.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman, as the movie starts to end, he's talking with Batman. They're starting to become friends. And Batman looks at him like, I thought you couldn't be hurt. He's like, yeah, so did I. And just as Lex is being led away in handcuffs, he's like, oh, you have no idea what's coming. And then that could mean maybe doomsday. That could mean any number of different things. It leaves it up to the audience to figure out, well, what the hell does Lex mean by that? Is he just kind of talking smoke at his ass? And then this way, when we move into phase 2 of DCEU, we're more open up to what we want to do. Do we want, because I would love to see a big version of the death of Superman with maybe cyborg Superman as the big bad. I want that somehow, some way, but I don't know how we get to that. But I figure in Justice League, even with all the combined powers of Earth's protectors, somebody managed to hurt Soups enough that he was worried.
Yeah. Now, while I was working on this, I actually came up over the course of the first 3 phases. We're going to have, like how we had 3 Captain America movies, we're going to have 3 Superman movies. You have Superman. The sequel going into phase 2, I would call Superman the Man of Steel, because I think it's a little trite to call it Superman Doomsday. But I would have, you know, whatever origin background we come up with Doomsday, but it's, you know, it's the death of Superman, which triggers, you know, the not the same like depression that happened in the Snyderverse with the death of Superman when what we saw in Justice League. Just we have that, and you have the last. I'm gonna have for a first. We're gonna have 4 mid-credit scenes, kind of how they ended Guardians Volume 2. But the first scene is this kid walks out of Lex Tower, and you see him pull on his jacket.
Oh, the Metropolis Wonder, yes.
Yeah, and it's the leather. It's Superboy before he was Con-El, before he was Connor. You know, shaved, dumbass shaved side of his head, leather jacket with the yellow S shield on the back. And by this point, because like whatever happens in Justice League, the first one, or my idea with Lex Luthor is one of my favorite things of Lex Luthor is how he always got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it annoyed the hell out of me, but it's just literally Superboy taking this, don't wait up, Dad. And then Lex just sitting there, they grow up so fast. And then the second one would be some mugger, like think those skeevy dudes from the beginning of Batman 89 mugging this mother and father and child. And this, you see this being in a cape in the shadows floating. It's like, you're dead. And you just hear this really cold, no, you are. And there's this burst of light, and there's just those nuclear uh, ash, like, what do you call them? Outlines on a wall, like what we saw in Iron Man when he goes to investigate that bomb blast. Then you have Star Labs tracking something incoming, and this being comes to ends the flight over top Star Labs. It's Cyborg Superman. And the final one, just because it's my favorite of the Superman, or the Superman from Death of Superman, is a hand, or you see this massive shifting rubble. Somebody's digging them out from like this part of the damage done by Superman in Doomsday. And it's John Henry Irons as he crawls out of the rubble, still clutching his sledgehammer. And just,
I think you could turn Steel into a really good television series.
yeah. And I would do with the death and return of Superman, like we know how the story goes in the comics. I think this is the first streaming show that I would want to put out. I would have two bursts. We have 6 and 7 episodes. We have this first season, but you know how they did the first 5 episodes or whatever it was of Stranger Things season 4, and then they had the last 4. Like split it up like that, and have it, the world, funeral for a friend, world without Superman sort of thing, as we build up to the reveal that Cyborg Superman is really a bad guy. And that would lead into my third Superman movie, still in phase 2, Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, where the Pretenders, the Superman and Justice League, and maybe a couple other, tangential, like have like the Atom, or, anyone else, like Plastic Man. Definitely got to get Plastic Man in there somewhere, and have them team up to stop the machinations of Cyborg Superman, who is trying to turn, it would take too long to get into the origin of Cyborg Superman, folks. Suffice to say, the character of Hank Henshaw and where Superman, rescued the shuttle, it's basically a nod to the origin of the Fantastic Four, where they all get these weird powers and the rest of his crew dies, but he survives as his being becomes this energy entity that can control technology. And that's how he's able to, become Cyborg Superman, because he stole a DNA sample from Superman's birthing pod starship that brought him to Earth. And I mean, to roll it all the way back to Superman, the way I would have done the origin of Superman during the credits of Superman is taken. Have you ever seen the All-Star Superman animated movie?
Yes, and I really liked it.
Yeah, and I would do something like that, like, Doomed Planet, Last Survivor. You see him, Jor-El yelling at somebody in the Kryptonian Council, putting Kal-El into the pod, sending him off, landing on Earth. Jonathan and Martha Kent, yada yada. That would all kind of be in that flash, that montage in beginning of Superman. So that's, when Superman comes back at the end to defeat him, because as much as I want to use Warworld, I think that's just, I don't
save it.
Yeah, I want to save it, but like in my story it's leading to that, because Cyborg Superman's going to try and turn Earth into a war world.
Good plan. I like that.
And he's stopped, and Superman's not going to have the super mullet when he comes back. I'm sorry. That was
I think he should have it for a scene, and then he cuts it off saying, "Oh, that looks so stupid." I think that'd be kind of a little bit of levity.
Yeah.
The next movie I'm going to do is we're going to do a Batman story again, and we're going to up the ante a touch. So in the first movie, he was more of a detective. He's only been doing this for a couple of years. Now, as you mentioned, the crazies are starting to come out. And it's going to be a breakout at Arkham Asylum, and it's going to be a 2-villain movie. And we're going to feature one villain we've seen before, one we haven't seen since the 90s. We're going to have Scarecrow, because I love that psychological fear toxin bullshit.
Mhm.
And I'm either going to bring back Cillian Murphy or Dr. Herbert West himself. I'll find a way to get Jeffrey Combs involved. And the main
Oh
antagonist,
God, I'm sorry.
and the, wouldn't that
Nerdgasm.
be wouldn't that be so cool? And then
Oh,
the main
please.
villain of this movie, it's going to be tragic. They've touched on it before in the animation. They've touched on it before in the movie from 1997, kind of. I want Mr. Freeze. And you know who I want to play Mr. Freeze for me?
Hmm.
Michael Fassbender.
Check and mate.
Like, I want someone who can really carry that gravitas role, and I want someone to play off of him. Like, I want basically Mr. Freeze's plan is to cause as much chaos in Gotham while he gathers resources to work on a cure for his wife. Turns out maybe LexCorp has been holding her body in suspended animation for some reason. I don't know. We'll make it up later. And he
Oh, I know
needs to
how to
get out
do
of prison.
that. I know how to explain why the Heart of Ice, like the classic Batman the Animated Series episode, instead of having the Ferris Boyle or whatever the Mark Hamill character that he voiced in the episode, have LexCorp run the cryonics lab that Victor Freeze is working in. So you have Lex and some of his Lex men or LexCorp security, whatever you want to call them, come in to shut it down after Freeze was told. And then you have the origin where he's like, no, Nora. And he gets blasted in the face with this super secret cryonic fluid that they've developed. And I mean, just to explain why Lex would have it. Because why wouldn't he have his fingers in a pie like this? I love that. I was thinking of doing a Batman similar to what we did with Batman, or what I did with my Superman, is have Batman Nightfall, where there's a breakout at Arkham Asylum that's been masterminded by Bane. Like this is how I want to introduce Bane and have the classic, like it's dumb and overwrought and went on way too long, like so many storylines in the 90s, but have it end with Bane having whittled Batman down to like 10% of his capacity. And that classic scene from the comics where Bruce has come home to the Batcave and he's thrown his costume over a chair in the Batcave. He's walking upstairs, or the cape anyhow, and the grandfather clock entrance is open. And he can see scenes of a struggle. He goes out into the library and it's been trashed, it's been tossed. And he sees, not crumpled up, but collapsed by the wall, Alfred, battered, bloodied, still alive, but he sees Alfred's trusty double-barreled shotgun, and it's like an Elmer Fudd where the barrels have been bent back towards the wielder, and you just hear this "Good evening, Mr. Wayne," and you turn around and it's Dave Bautista.
Nice.
How this man has not played Bane in a live action capacity is a mystery for the ages. But you have him, and it's the classic full faced Bane, like lucha mask from the 90s. I wouldn't have like the big floppy tube, have him. He's got the control dial in his left hand. He's got the tube kind of strapped in a secure way up his arm. He's got, kind of a backpack deal sort of thing for the Venom. And he's got like the 3 tubes into his head. And you see him jacked up, however, it's CGI obviously, but it's Dave Bautista, so we're not going to have to use that much. And have him slap Batman around. Because in the comics at this point, Batman has been worn down to nothing. He's been running around almost with barely any sleep and barely any sustenance for weeks at this point, trying to capture all of his villains that have escaped en masse from Arkham. And it ends with that sickening that snap, and then scene. and the end credit scene would be Vicky Vale reporting live from the Wayne estate, where police have, like the cops have come in, they found Batman. Well, they found Bruce. Alfred got enough together, because it's that classic, in the comics, how Bruce and Alfred argue about, whether or not he should be Batman. They did it a lot in the animated series. Like, they have that kind of very argumentative father-son relationship. Alfred at least got it together to strip Bruce of his bat gear, and you just would see him struggling to throw it down the stairs to the bat cave and hit the switch to lock it up, and no one can tell there's a door there. And then the cops have come in. You see Bruce like wrapped up in bandages and strapped into a backboard, and they're loading him into a thing. And this is where I would debut Lucius Fox. I don't know who I would cast as Lucius. I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy that played him in Gotham I really liked, and I wish they would have had a little bit more with him. So I might lean to him, and that would lead into Night Quest, where I'm not going to use. You love to use Azrael in here, but it would necessitate a third movie, and I would have. Okay, in the comics, do you know how he healed his back?
Lazarus Pit?
No. There was this doctor, Dr. Kinsolving, I think was her name was, and she had this laying on of hands power where she could heal somebody, but the greater, and she could do it a lot, but the greater amount of energy she used also kind of retarded her mental facilities. So by the end of Night Quest in the comics, she's regressed to like a childlike mentality because it's literally worn her mind down to nothing. But in this one, yes, Night Quest would be Bruce looking for ways to deal with, how Gotham has descended even further into chaos. He's contacted by an old lover, Talia, who at this point this is also going to be kind of the introduction of Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows into this universe, and have Talia come up with this miracle, the Lazarus Pit. And you would have, it's basically a devil's bargain. It's like, I'll do this for you. I'll come to you someday, blah, 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 to pay it back. And he's cool with that because he's got to protect Gotham. And the end credit scene would be, her going back to like Tibet, and is like, so my daughter, did he accept, and because this isn't like the paranoid psycho that a lot of Batman comics made him to look like in the 90s. I want to make this more adventurous, a little more comic booky, but keep it not grounded, but realistic is just the wrong word. But have it be Ra's. Now, do we want to have Middle Eastern or straight up Asian actor? And I know the Middle East is technically part of Asia. I'm not trying to be ignorant, folks. I loved his voice work as Oded Fair, Ardith Bay from the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies.
Oh yeah, all right.
Voiced him in Young Justice. I would love to give him a chance because he's played bad guys in some things before. But if he could bring some of that Ardith Bay swagger, especially with whoever we cast as Batman, because he's still pretty spry nowadays. I think we could have, in like whatever we do next in my next Batman movie down the line, and have Batman face the consequences of using the Lazarus Pit, and I want to have like a third act sword fight between Ra's al Ghul and Batman in his hidden lair in the Tibetan Himalayas. Not think kind of like Temple of Doom-esque in its setup, like pits and scaffolding and lava pits. Oh my. But that's how I would end my second Batman movie. Now, what would you want to do for next as we're building up here?
I think obviously his finale movie for Batman, whatever phase that's in, has to be against the Joker.
Yeah.
But it has to be the right storyline. I'm honestly thinking I don't want to do it on some level. I think it would have to be changed a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because I do want to spin this off into its own movie since it got canceled. I want Killing Joke. because
we're not going to have a rooftop sex scene, obviously.
no. Yeah, we're not having that, but I like the idea of Barbara Gordon fighting back, getting out of the wheelchair from becoming Oracle to becoming Batgirl again, and really taking it to Gotham while Bruce heals. I think that would be a nice way to pass the mantle of the Bat while Batman heals, and then you could maybe do a Nightwing TV series or something.
Yeah.
But really let Batgirl breathe. Let Batman and the Joker have one awesome drag out fight, and where the Batman almost kills Joker. And I want the final scene to play out like it does in the comic, where the Joker tells Batman a joke and Batman laughs.
And
I think that'd be funny.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that some people think the Killing Joke isn't in canon, aside from the fact that the Joker shot Barbara Gordon, Batgirl. But I've always been of the opinion with that ending of that particular story that it's just literally this crazy moment between these two mortal enemies where Batman's just putting his hands on his shoulder and he's just killing himself laughing because the stress in the situation, because you know how it is, you let stress build up and then someday somebody could say the word pussy fart and you just laugh maniacally for like 10 minutes and just all that stress comes flooding out of you at once in this spasm of laughter. So I'm down with that. And well, we both talked about it last time. Like, I wanted to see the Batgirl. I was weirdly hyped for that, but I wouldn't heal Barbara Gordon because somewhere down the line, whether it's in Phase 4 or 5, I would want to do a Birds of Prey movie where we introduce Canary, Black Canary, and then Dinah Lance. You introduce Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress, and because that was one of my favorite characters growing up was Oracle Barbara Gordon. Like, she reinvented herself, and she was paralyzed from the waist down. She trained herself because she's got eskrima sticks built into her chair that she can pop out like a slight motion and lay somebody out. Like, she's still Batgirl. She just can't go tumbling off of rooftops. And she becomes Oracle, like this hacker supreme in the DC universe. I would love to do a Birds of Prey movie. Maybe have Barbara, mention at one point she had dated Dick Grayson, who's Nightwing over in Bloodhaven, but currently she's dating this dude named Ted Kord. And I want somebody that's maybe about if it's possible, half the charm and charisma that Ryan Reynolds has. Because you want somebody that's affable, no, you know what? We want a what's his name? Plays Ant-Man.
Paul Rudd.
We want a Paul Rudd for Ted Kord because eventually he's going to become Blue Beetle, and have them whatever mystery come up. And the end credit scene in that particular movie would be this young Asian girl, or Barbara is going down this alley and she's waylaid by like 3 or 4 thugs who are like, hey bitch, give us your money, classic Gotham City thing. And they're all laid out by like this 16-year-old Asian girl. It's Cassandra Cain, Batgirl.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, as far as building, to like, our fourth world at, the end of Phase 3, to go back to the cosmic a little bit, it's even more, just like the Challengers of the Unknown is a fairly unknown classic DC character that I think a lot of modern readers might not know, and that's Adam Strange, who, I forget if we talked in the last time. I know we talked about it before. Adam Strange, folks, is this classic DC sci-fi comic from the 60s of this archaeologist who's hit by this beam from the heavens and transported to the far-off planet of Ran, very Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers kind of place. And that beam was a Zeta beam, which is this super teleportation beam that this scientist Sardath created. And he's hooked and reeled back this human from Earth. And I'm not going to do what they do in Young Justice, where Adam Strange had to basically... Have you ever seen The 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas?
I saw that opening night in the 90s, so yep.
Okay. So the idea in that movie is he literally is this Spaniard warrior who goes, or Persian warrior, who pals around with these Vikings for like months before he starts to understand the language. I'm not doing that here. Sardas sees this gibbering monkey. You know, he can't understand what this thing's saying, so he hits him with the universal translator nanites right away. Done. It sounds like they're speaking English and he sounds like he's speaking Radian. And by the end of it, we would have uncovered another key piece of classic New Gods ephemera, I think is the right word. In the villain of this movie would be this DC villain called Starbreaker. He's basically a cosmic vampire that eats suns. And over the course of this, he's looking for this source of power that's long been rumored to be lost on Ron. And they find it in this cave, and it rushes out in this torrent, and it almost annihilates him before, you know, they use the Zeta beam to defeat him. But what they've found is this piece of wall that it has these burning letters on it that say, "You are not ready. He is coming." And it's a piece of the source wall, which is the source wall, folks, in DC Comics is way out in the
end of the universe sort of thing.
End of the universe. It's this giant wall covered with giants and sundry other aliens that have been absorbed into this wall. This is the barrier of reality. This is the end of the line. Literally, the Big Bang hasn't even, because, you know, it's still propagating throughout existence. The Big Bang hasn't hit this thing yet. It's way the fuck out there. And eventually we see when we get to on a new Genesis, like in the New Gods movie, or comics, there's a piece of the source wall where the source, this fiery hand comes and draws out like 2 or 3 words to tell all High Father and the New Gods, you know, shit's going down. So I would introduce the source wall, you know, source wall energy here. And, you know, that would move us forward again, heading towards the end game. I think
when I think of the next movie that I want to do,
mm-hmm.
I want to do a Green Lantern core movie. And we're going to have 3 Green Lanterns. We're really going to fill this out because I think I said we're going to do a Green Lantern TV show. So our 3 Green Lanterns will be Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, and John Stewart. And we're going to do a version of maybe the Sinestro Corps War or something. I want Sinestro to be the big bad guy. We're not doing Parallax. That didn't work out so well last time. But Sinestro, he's iconic. I'm bringing back Mark Strong as Sinestro because he looked fucking badass.
Oh, he did it great. And I would say we do save the Sinestro Corps for the sequel.
Okay.
And have the first Green Lantern Corps War. And I would, like you said before, you know, have Nathan Fillion be Hal Jordan, but he's been doing this forever, so he is
looking to retire.
He's looking to retire. He is kind of the Nick Fury of our DC universe a little. We can have him, you know, weave him in and out here, but have the 3 lanterns, or no, have 3 lanterns to be the focus. Hal Jordan's still there, but it's Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, and Guy Gardner.
Is there a girl Green Lantern that maybe we could bring in?
We could use. That's Jessica Cruz. She's from, you know,
she's from the Super Pets movie, right? Isn't she?
I haven't seen the Super Pets movie yet, so I don't
it's
know.
Fun. But yeah, I would want a girl Green Lantern, John Stewart, and then a new Green Lantern who's young. So either Guy, or Kyle. I want something weird.
We can have Guy Gardner and have him be like the Dum Dugan to Hal Jordan's Nick Fury. Like, he's in the core too. He actually, in the comics, when Abin-Sur crashed on Earth, he sent the ring, you know, find somebody who's worthy, and there's Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner, and Hal Jordan was like 5 minutes closer. That's an actual canon fact. And that's part of the reason why Guy Gardner's been such a dick over the years to Hal Jordan and to people in general, because he's got this huge ass chip on his shoulder. But yeah, have the Sinestro War, you know, or Core War. Have him. I would have Sinestro escape the science cells on Oa in our end credit scene with the first one, and have him find a yellow ring, and kind of like what happened with Mark Strong in that other movie. And then have the Sinestro Corps War where he spent time in between the films building, and the Sinestro Corps is trying to, not take over the universe to take it over, but they, Sinestro's thing is he uses fear to get people in line. And if you can scare people and keep them afraid, they'll just toe the line. They won't get out of hand. I love that. To keep the weird, bring some of the weird DC comics back in. The next movie I would put in here, very much again like the Guardians movie, the idea with challengers. I want to do the Doom Patrol.
Okay.
And I want to do the classic Doom Patrol. The original team from back in the 60s, which was the Chief, Niles Calder, Robot Man, Elastigirl, and Negative Man. And if at all possible, I would love to bring the Doom Patrol cast from the current TV show in, because I love it. Timothy Dalton as the Chief, our boy Brendan Fraser as Cliff Steele, Robot Man, Matt Bomer as Negative Man. Forgive me, I forget the name of the actress, but it's Candy from 2.5 Men, like that ditzy redhead that dated Alan for like 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then also have Rita's boyfriend, Steve Dayton, who has this helmet that gives him telepathy and telekinesis powers and eventually drives him insane in the comics, and their adopted child, Beast Boy. And
okay.
I wouldn't give him the original purple coloring he had. He's straight up green, whatever. He gets bit by a snake, he's dying of poison. The only medicine they can come up with is this weird, not to be culturally ignorant, but voodoo-like concoction that these natives give to his parents, and that saves him and somehow unlocks the ability, or gives Garfield Logan the ability to turn into any animal on Earth. And these teams, they were the X-Men before the X-Men in 60s comics. They were dubbed as the world's strangest hero, or the strangest heroes of all time. And they go after stuff like, there's this fungus that not only turns people into zombies, it's trying to take over the world, or there's this creature running around in, bumfuck nowhere America with a clock, with a grandfather clock for a head, and its hands are made out of knives. Like weird stuff like that. I would try and use some of the creatures that came from the classic Grant Morrison Doom Patrol run. And by the end of it, again, this is another one where I would love to use the weird classic DC, like to bring in the fourth world a little bit more. I don't necessarily know what it is. One of the ideas that I toyed with is, have you ever seen like the first season of Young Justice?
No.
Okay. They introduce a lot of fourth world in that series, and one of them is the Super Cycle, which is this, it's this giant, tricked out, souped up motorcycle that looks like it came straight out of a manga. And I would have that be somewhere in the warehouse of secrets that the chief has. One of their classic headquarters that was only used a couple of times in the comics was this castle where it's like there are rooms in it that are way bigger than the castle would structurally have. So it's got this TARDIS effect going on. And somewhere in the warehouse of secrets the Chiefs have, there's the Super Cycle. And it turns on, energy going up the Tron lines on the side of it, not unlike Kit's scanner on Knight Rider. And it revs up and boom, it's flown out through a hole, like it's punched a hole in the wall, and Cliff Steele comes in with it's literally where you look in the comics, there's a hole in the wall and all the heads poke out from different sides of the hole, and literally have Robot Man say, "What in the fuck was that?" And that's where we end it. I don't know what we want to do for an end credit scene here, but I would love, you're just moving that shit forward.
Yeah, I got to thinking. So there are 3 movies I think we need to do before we get on to our next big event picture. And
Mhm.
this is where we're allowed to experiment. I want a director who's really good with comedy, but is not Taika Waititi. I want someone different. I want to do a Plastic Man movie that's a straight up comedy. I want the most ridiculous, dumbass shit to happen. And I think DC needs a little bit of levity during all this. It's all been tragedy and loss, and it's got to be goofy. So I want a Plastic
Hmm.
Man movie that can be a streaming exclusive. Doesn't matter. That's
Who do you
fine as
know?
long as we get something different in there.
Who would you want to cast as Eel O'Brien, the Plastic Man?
See, I would have said someone like a Paul Rudd because I love that energy, that vibe. You need someone young. I would have done Ryan Reynolds circa 2005 when he
Like
did the movie
Van
Waiting.
Wilder?
Yeah,
Or
Van Wilder. That is a Plastic Man to me.
ooh, what if we use no? He might be a little old now, but I mean Justin Long.
Yeah, if you could get Justin
Oh
Long when
no,
he did Accepted, that sort of
that
timeline.
Justin Long or either Justin Long or Matthew Gray Gubler, like Spencer Reed from Criminal Minds. Because
Yeah,
I
all
think
right.
that guy has like untapped comedic potential. Now, as far as the weird shit goes, and have this is straight up like ad, action adventure comedy. There was a I forget the artist, but there was a mini series I read back in the '80s where it's like the classic origin of Plastic Man. He's Eel O'Brien. He's this goon for like multiple different criminal gangs. They go on this heist of this chemical plant. He gets winged. He's got a a grazing wound from an officer, and then somebody knocks over this vat of chemicals and it gets in the wound and he escapes and he wanders up in the hills and there's like this weird monastery up there and he seeks refuge and the cops never find him. He's assumed dead. And when he wakes up 3 days later, that's where he discovers his stretchy powers. And then in this origin, like after all that, he gets back to the city. He's like, no, that he doesn't really think he's stretching. He thinks he's just whacked out of his gourd. And there's this one scene where he's cornered by the cops, and this comic is a straight up comedy. He's trapped in a porta potty, and you see the three panels. He looks at the toilet, he looks at the door, he looks at the toilet, he looks at the door, he looks back at the toilet and says, "I would rather die." And then we switch to the next scene as the cops start unloading it, and he crawls out of a drain or out of a like another toilet somewhere, and he's like, I would have him break the fourth wall here and just look at the audience. We will never speak of this again.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah. Now,
The other two movies that have to happen because we haven't talked about these two since Phase 1. Wonder Woman needs a follow-up, and that one needs to be more heroic in scale. It needs to be more action adventure-y, sort of like I want it to feel like a modern superhero movie that's more just action packed, but it doesn't need to have deep political intrigue. It can have more of the gods and strange new things or whatever, but I want it to be action packed. I want Wonder Woman to really stand out, to do something really really special. Maybe we can build towards that thing we were talking about earlier with her fighting Cheetah or
yeah.
something. Give her something really, really cool to do. I want the invisible jet in there because why the hell not? And I want a scene with Amazons fighting.
That actually, yeah, that would be really good. And you get this whole kind of Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider kind of, because it could be some, if you want to involve the gods, there are these ley line cross sections of ley lines around the world, and somebody is using these intersections to sap power from all these pantheons, and if we want to involve the cheetah, have her come along, like have her. I would in that first week I would establish Dr. Barbara Minerva as like a friend of Diana's, like kind of do what they did in '84, but build it up a little bit more. So not the third act reveal, but somewhere in like the end of the first act or in the second act, have her, you know, it's either she completes this ritual and turns into the cheetah, or she is turned into the cheetah by all the shenanigans going on, and have her like fighting the urge to go after Diana because she has all these primal instincts going on, or have her straight off join the villain team, or having always been a villain, she's just been stringing Diana along for a while, which is something you've done in recent runs of Wonder Woman with her. And yeah, do something like that. And I would, leading into our next Mystic movie, because I think we need to bring back the Mystic a little bit, and I love Jack Kirby concepts, is literally introduce, like, Diana is end credit scene, she's sitting in a coffee shop, like, oh my god, it's Wonder Woman. He signs a couple autographs, poses for pictures with a couple of girls. She sits back down, and you see this dude in like a nice slick green suit, like very dark emerald
Are you
gold
bringing the
shirt.
fucking Spectre in?
No, I'm not bringing the Spectre. I'm bringing in motherfucking Etrigan the Demon, because it's going to be Jason Blood introducing himself to Diana, which will lead into the next movie, The Demon, where he knows from the ghost of Merlin the Magician, who is Etrigan's half brother in the comics, that we talks about the Mother Box and the Source Wall and Adam Strange and all that, and the super cycle. These fourth world artifacts are becoming a bit of a problem, and he's trying to find the last one, or the last one on Earth, and have it be kind of a more horror based but kind of cosmic with the demon. I'm not all up on a lot of his villains. Like, I pretty much just know the classic Kirby series, but he didn't have any recurring villains really, except for Morgana Le Fay. Hell, she could be the villain.
There you go.
And then I would unleash the evil Batmite that I would be working towards by the end of the film. This seemingly innocuous obelisk in like the third act, where the fight between Etrigan and Morgana happens. And this weird, seemingly innocuous obelisk with a crack in it, you start seeing black and red tinged smoke pouring out, and the intense, like, hammer horror kind of suspenseful music is playing, and these hands dig out through the crack, and you hear this struggling, and you think it's some huge demon from the sound of it. It bursts open, and it's Clarion the Witch Boy with Teakle, his cat. And I'll save that for a movie down the line, but he is definitely going to come back in my timeline somewhere.
Sorry, go ahead.
And I was just saying, I love this. I need. There were so many chances for them to do Etrigan. They could have done Etrigan in a very CW way, and it still would have worked, and they never fucking did it.
So my next movie is a hero who needs a redemption arc for the damage he caused in Justice League 1. We're bringing back Aquaman, and I want it to be a political movie. There's going to be some fight scenes where he's going to fight some weird shit.
So kind of Winter Soldierish?
Yeah, like, I want the people of Atlantis to be like, you led us into a war with the surface world, with a surface dweller. We don't trust you anymore. The throne of Atlantis is now up for grabs.
He's been ousted from his throne. You could have Worm, the Ocean Master, no, I couldn't possibly. You're the only one we trust.
Exactly.
What if you suggest?
Exactly. And it's perfect.
That could have been
Luther's
Contact. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Now you've connected Justice League 1 to Aquaman 1, and you've got a great redemption story. So I figure if I had to pitch TV series in here, I would love to see Teen Titans. I don't know whether I'd want to do. Maybe I would do a limited series with Robin after his defeat where Gotham is only being protected by Nightwing and Robin. Maybe you could even call it Gotham Knights after the kind of video game, and you could have Red Hood or something in there. I don't know. You could throw something at the wall. I'm sure something will stick.
Well, there is a preponderance, if that's even the right word to use. Like, there are so many characters, like hero characters in Gotham City. You could have Nightwing, Tim Drake. End credit scene would be the introduction of Red Hood in my, if we go like that, because lead that into like the next Batman movie, but
Yeah.
have like Nightwing, Tim Drake, the Creeper, who's like this very off kilter Gonzo, ostensibly a superhero in Gotham City. You could have Katana. You could even have it like kind of be like a pseudo Outsiders team, and bring in Katana and Metamorpho and Black Lightning. Yes, I want an Outsiders movie. And then the next Batman movie would Batman Under the Red Hood, where Joker's out and about somewhere in Gotham, and Batman's running himself ragged again because he's a little bit obsessive, don't you know? And there's this new crime boss on the market, named the Red Hood, who's taking over gigs, but crime is low. It's not gone, but there haven't been any gang fights, the gang wars, no assassinations, nobody's sleeping with the fishes in cement shoes. And Batman's trying to figure out, like, what has happened. And it would be very much like that animated movie in the comic series that the movie is based on, where you have that scene where, first of all, I would love, if he's not too old at this point, I would love Jensen Ackles to be Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Or if some way we could clone Jensen Ackles and have a young Jensen Ackles play Red Hood, that would be awesome. But have that scene where he's on this catwalk over this meeting of criminals and drug kingpins and all this, and he tosses down the duffel bag with like all their lieutenants' heads in it. And that's in the comics, and it's not in the comics, but it's in the animated movie. I would have the Joker, whoever we cast. My vote is for David Tennant, because that guy just has a naturally rubbery face. And have the Joker look at him, I used to wear something like that. Mine was more flashy maitre d' than Sons of Anarchy. And just have that one line, and have the scene like in the movie where you have Batman facing down Red Hood, who's got this customized pistol pointed at his head. And he's like, you decide right to have that scene, because part of the story is, what is the greatest failure in Batman's career, his life? It's the death of Jason Todd.
Yeah.
And I would leave it ambiguous until you see him stand up and you see the Red Hood helmet on him and he's looking at the bat signal, because basically I want to recreate the ending of Batman Returns here.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do one more character before we get into our Crisis era, like we've done Hawkman, we've done the Doom Patrol, we've done all this crazy stuff. I'm torn here, because there's another teen movie I would love to do, and that's the Metal Men, where this very absent-minded professor's character creates the responsometers, which are these think a supercomputer in the size of a softball. Mm-hmm. And he plugs them into this tanks of molten metal, and it generates these android superheroes with like these weird, metal morphing powers. And because they write this in the comics, like Gold is, honest and stalwart, and he's kind of the leader, and Steel is strong and, the muscle of the group, and Lead's kind of slow, but he's a good guy, and Platinum is all chipper in that, and she's lusting after her creator, and that's actually a thing in the comics. And you have Little Tin, who, I'm not that important, I don't really matter, like he's got this whole sad sack thing going on. I would love to do the Metal Men. And oh man, I want to another origin movie. Actually, no. If we Metal Men's down the road in like phase 4 or 5, I want to do a Martian Manhunter movie.
Okay, all right,
and
I like that.
While it's an origin movie, it's
a team up at the same time, maybe.
Well, not a team up. I want to make it not, like you said, make it a superhero movie, not political, but kind of a slice of life. Because one of the things I've always loved of the Martian Manhunter, and I think it's a criminally underrated series that came out where he got his own title after like 50 years in the mid to late 90s, And it introduces this concept that he has lives all over the world because he is
A
the last
shapeshifter.
Martian. Is a shapeshifter. So in order to experience the human condition, he's a Middle Eastern cabbie in Metropolis, and you have this scene where Clark's in the back seat reading a newspaper, and you see this sly smile come over his face. He's Detective John Jones in Denver, Colorado, solving mysteries with like the beautiful mind sort of thing from the Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes series. And I would have him, just trying to understand. He's trying to find a home. He's been here for years, and we see that. And I want to go with the classic origin where this scientist on Earth has created what he thinks is a teleporter, or sometimes it's a teleport. Other times it's just a radio in space that somehow teleports John Jones to Earth, and then this guy promptly drops dead of a heart attack, and John escapes and assumes all these lives, and have him recover a memory of having faced the new gods before or something. Don't necessarily have to hook it into the fourth world, but have him meet Batman. Actually, I would love, it's one of the things that doesn't come. Batman's the only guy that can sneak up on Martian Manhunter. So I would recreate that scene from the Justice League movie where John Jones comes home. He's gone to the store. The first thing he does is rip open a pack of Oreos, or Chocos as they call them in the comic, because that's his like one addiction in life. In fact, there's a Justice League comic where Zoriel, who's this angel of heaven who's joined the team, don't ask, it would take too long to explain. He's giving the readers a tour through the Justice League watchtower. And he looks at his, at least I wish Manhunter would explain why he's got a case of Oreos padlocked in this thing. But have, like I said, have him come home munching on, and all of a sudden he finally, after like a minute, senses the presence of Bruce Wayne, and it's just, he clicks on the light. Took you long enough. And then that'll go into, as we not necessarily start to wrap up, as we get into the Crisis. And again, Crisis on Infinite Earths, I think that's further, we need to keep that further down the line.
I think maybe we need another Flash movie to introduce the idea that maybe we're not the only multiverse out there.
That's what I kind of want to do with this, and just call it Justice League Crisis.
Yeah.
This is going to
be a loose adaptation of certain things.
Lewd adaptation of the classic story Crisis on Two Earths. And it's good. One of the teaser images is kind of, there's that classic the classic Flash comic, I forget what issue, but it's the one where we introduce the multiverse into DC Comics, where Barry runs so fast he literally runs across dimensional barriers into Earth 2 and meets Jay Garrick, the Flash. So you have that start the movie, and it's this weird thing where he's sucked back almost very violently because he's relaxed his vibrations, and that in the comics they say when you relax your vibrations, that kind of shifts you back to your proper dimension, because every dimension vibrates at slightly different frequencies. Mm-hmm. And have the Justice League have to team up with the Justice Society, because I don't want to do Lex Luthor, because I don't want to use him too much, because I really do like Lex Luthor as a villain. Like, I want to have, there's a classic, I keep saying that, there's a classic Silver Age villain called the Key, who is this wacko scientist that worked for one of the many secret evil organizations in DC. I think is Intergang. But he experiments, and he injects himself, comes with all these serums and potions that he unlocks. At one point, he claims to have 11 different senses. So he has 6 senses beyond the normal 5. And somehow this guy, or whatever villain we use, it doesn't have to be the Key, but the Justice League villain in Earth 1 has somehow come into contact with Vandal Savage on Earth 2. And they've crossed over, and it's literally this, maybe even have to be a 2-part, but have Crisis be this team up between the Justice Society and Justice League. because I kind of want to have the Golden Age Justice Society version of Hawkman meet, our Earth One space cop version of Hawkman, and just, who the hell are you?
Yeah,
Have a moment like that.
I think splitting that in the two movies might be a really good idea, and release them about 1 year to 8 months apart.
Yeah.
And then we can lead into what would essentially be phase 3. Now, we've been talking for almost 2 hours here, folks. So this is a conversation we're actually going to come back to, because I think we're actually building something kind of cool here. We've introduced the multiverse. We have new gods. We haven't fought Dark Side yet. We haven't come across War World yet. We have the Green Lantern Corps. We've got the mystical side. We have gods. We've got Batman and Superman have gone through their challenges. The Flash has introduced this whole new wrinkle in everything, and Aquaman has reclaimed his throne, and the world accepts him as the king of Atlantis again, not the guy who attacked wherever in the first Justice League. So the world as we see it, the RDCEU has multiple moving parts. It's got television shows, it's got limited series. If I were to propose 2 additional projects before we close out, these are my I wish I could have these but will probably never happen.
Mm-hmm.
They are 2 animated series, and they are 45 minutes apiece, and they are anthology. I want a Elseworlds series, so you can do Gotham by Gaslight, you can do Blackest Night as like a season finale or something, stuff you can have fun with, basically our version of What If. And the series finale, because we're going to have to call up Kevin Feige and Jon Favreau. We're going to have to bring the briefcase full of gold bullion. Okay, folks, we're going to settle this once and for all. It's going to be a 6-episode limited series. This is how we're going to end it. The Amalgam Universe comes to life in animated form.
Okay, can I be slightly gross for a second?
Yes.
I have never gotten so hard so fast before.
Because that would be awesome. And you get the people from Marvel to voice their characters. And you do Dark Claw, you do Super Soldier, you do Spider Boy.
Okay.
You have fun with it.
Stunt casting, sure, but we get Hugh Jackman to voice Dark Claw.
Oh, yeah.
I want Wolverine voicing Dark Claw. Now, if I can...
Or Cal Dodd. I'll take either or.
I like it. I dig. Now, if I would do, if we're going to do quick 2, maybe 3 things, I'll squeeze in as fast as I can. I would love to have, not necessarily an anthology, but introduce other mystic characters in our DC universe. I
like
want
Constantine.
Have, like I'm gonna call him Constantine. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I've been saying it for too long. Constantine just sounds weird. No offense to you, Neil Gaiman, but for the purposes of this conversation, have the House of Mystery as, again, in 2 parts, maybe 13 episodes, maybe only 8 or 9 episodes, but have the classic the House of Mystery, which is this magical house in the DC universe that moves from place to place. The current owner, or at least the guy in charge, is John Constantine, and think of it. No, this is what we're doing. It's going to be the House of Mystery. The house moves. Essentially, I'm going to make John Constantine our version, our Doctor Who in the DC universe, because the House of Mystery has a mind of its own and it goes wherever it wants to go. But there's a reason. So have about 10 episodes, and over the first couple episodes, it's just seemingly John Constantine's been taken here, and he's looking into the death of, oh God, who is the Spectre's real identity? Jim
I know
something.
who you mean, yeah.
I'm just looking it up here. God.
Jim Corrigan. Yeah.
So you have the first episode, he's looking into the death of Jim Corrigan, and he finds his ghost, but he still doesn't know that he's dead. And he's just trying to finish this one case that he was in the middle of solving. And he's a slightly corrupt cop, but he's basically a good guy. And have him meet other mystic characters across the DC universe, and maybe have Zatanna pop in an episode and it's just a flashback to when they were younger 10 years ago. So you get young John Constantine, young Zatanna. You bring back whoever we cast as Giovanni Zatanna, and just have them as this kind of Stranger Things-esque episode. And just, bits and pieces. Another one, just for the kids, because I just marathoned the I Am Groot series on Disney Plus last night. Took me about half hour and change, because every short is about 5 minutes long. I want to do a Super Pets streaming series, kind of like Groot, have like these little animated shorts where it's, Crypto trying to find his bouncy ball, but it's even a larger range. He goes around the world into outer space, finds it stuck on the moon, and then Superman lands. He's like, sorry boy, it got a little away from me. Ace the Bat Hound and Streaky the Super Cat and Titano. Most of these are Superman, but there's other animal characters, because I love Crypto. But the last movie before we exit this, phase 2 or phase 3 at this point, kind of how they did Ant-Man Ant-Man and the Wasp in between Infinity War and Endgame. We have Mr. Miracle, and we start setting the stage for the introduction of Darkseid and New Genesis and all that fourth world batshit insaneness that our Lord and God Jack Kirby created. And you have Scott Free being like this show-stopping escape artist. Like, this guy out David Blaine's David Blaine. And, he's being attacked by these mysterious guys in trench coats, these big, brute, brick shithouse looking guys. And he's being attacked by all of these weird, kind of sexy looking pro wrestler type of women. And it's the introduction of Big Barda and the Female Furies, because they've tracked Scott Free down to Earth, and they're going to drag him back to the X Pit on Apocalypse. And these guys that they've been sending after him are actually parademons, but it's like the classic gold and green parademons, not the xenomorph looking things that we got
in the animated stuff.
Yeah, and they look like that in the comics too. And have it end with Barda turning against, she's had doubts about Granny Goodness and Lord Darkseid, and it's this very star-crossed lovers thing, and they end with a kiss between Barda and Mr. Miracle, and then this boom tube opens, and it's kind of like how they ended the Eternals, except you see a hand reach out, and it's any of the new gods. It could be Orion, Lightray, Highfather himself. He's like, would you like to go home now? Because Scott Free is actually the son of Highfather, who's like the leader of the new gods on New Genesis. And you end it there, and then we get our Avengers Thanos scene at the end of this movie, where a parademon has come back and is babbling like this almost incoherent screed of how the heroes of Earth who have discovered the source energy and all these, rattling all this stuff off. But you hear this deep, gravelly voice, and even if it's some giant pro wrestler playing physically Darkseid, we get Michael goddamn Ironside to come back and voice the end of all things Darkseid again. Because as Kevin Conroy is to Batman, he is the Darkseid.
I would take Michael Ironside, or he played it in one of the movies. I think his name was Andre. He was in House. I can't pronounce his last name, but it begins with a B. Brez something?
Brower,
yes. Andre Brower or Michael Ironside, either or. I'm fine with it.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, yeah. That's the Captain Holt. But you have that, and then you hear that voice. It's like, have they found the equation? And he's referring to the Female Furies, because he's like, the Furies failed, and they're continuing their hunt they're looking for the anti-life equation, because that's what Darkseid wants. that the great way they ended Justice League Unlimited like that. And then you hear that electrical zzz, and you see these crazy zigzagging parallel beams, and the Darkseid has let out the Omega effect, and you just see him do that slight turn to the side. And yes, I am ripping off this wholesale from Marvel, and I will not apologize for this. You see him do that turn to the right, and the slight smile comes over his gravelly face. Well, I guess I'll have to do it myself.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. My final pitch, and then we're going to end this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a love letter because I love the comics. I know they're owned by DC now. I want Gen 13, and I either want it as a live action teen drama. Basically, I know for years Marvel wanted to do Generation X or Mutant Academy, and we never got it. I mean, the closest thing we've got now is Miss Marvel. Give me
You
Gen
never
13.
saw that TV movie, did you?
I did, and it was a
Horrible.
thing. Yeah, it was a thing. But yeah, I want a Gen 13, or not Gen 13. I want Gen 13 as a movie. I love Caitlin Fairchild. I love all those guys from, like, I
My
saw
boy
the
Grunge.
Like, I read the comics. I read up to issue 40 or 50. I saw the movie on YouTube. Really weird how we never got it officially over here, but I love the idea. Like, it's basically the X-Men. Why the hell not? And it gives us a young show that's accessible to young adults and teenagers. It's still in canon, yet it can happen off on its own side of the thing, whether they're called Gen Actives or metahumans or whatever you want to call them. I'm cool with that. That's what I want.
I'm going to pitch one thing very, very quickly, and it's for a future episode, Mike. At some point, because I love Gen 13, I would love to see that movie. At some point, we have to do a fan cast episode on the Wildstorm universe, because it is a literal crime on the level of the Hague and the Geneva Convention. We have not had a Wildcats anything since that cartoon in the 90s, and that is my all-time favorite Image/Wildstorm universe comic book. We need to do that in the future.
I think a Wildcats anime would work so well. I mean,
oh god, I don't have enough blood to keep going.
I mean, just make it like, see how 13 episodes does and see what happens.
Ooh, okay, quick pitch, and we will wind it up, folks. We're running a little long here. Do the Wildstorm, and it's I love 13 episodes. It's a whole cable UK thing. Do a series over, say, 2 or 3 years, streaming or direct to DVD or whatever, and you have 45 minutes to an hour, and every episode of the Wildstorm is another character from the Wildstorm universe. We could have Gen 13, we could have Backlash, we could have the Wildcats, we could have the Authority, and all this Stormwatch. We could have Stormwatch, Mike. I will even grant you a 14th episode. We can make Wildstorm versus aliens.
But say yes, I want that as a exclusive to streaming. And again, that's part of the Marvel deal. They're like, well, we did do the Amalgam universe. Why don't we give you one more? And then we get that. So, and guys,
I don't know where we get Michael Biehn to voice somebody in that feature.
He voices Winter.
Yes.
Or like
yes.
Flint, or like Flint or something. But yeah, like
no, Winter. It's done. It's locked in.
But honestly, folks, this has been a lot of fun, and this just came out of an off-the-cuff conversation we had during TWIG. So we hopefully will get more of these out in the next little bit. JT will be joining me for some loose cannons later on, where we're going to take a look at the first 3 Hellraiser movies, because Pinhead, yet another iconic villain. Where have you been? I know we've got a remake on the horizon, but
I just threw up my mouth.
We'll see how this all turns out. So until next time, folks, I've been one of your many people getting stuff out of the dust bins or the long boxes, but I've been Mike the Birdman, joined with
JT from Saskatoon.
And we will see you folks in the funny pages right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
dark side is.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.